these statements that are being made are themselves taken from the Quran and from the Sunnah. And so there is the famous hadith that you know, related by Abdullah bin Amr radiyallahu anhu, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turned to the muhajirin and he explained to them that there are going to be 5 things. There are 5 things which if you are put to trial with them, or I seek refuge that you are going to be put to trial with them, or that you reach them. Then he mentions these 5 things. And the first of those things he mentions, he says, never does al-fahisha, never does open obscenity manifest in a people until they announce it openly and make it open, illa fasha fihim at-ta'un, except wal awja', except that plagues and diseases will enter into them that their forefathers never had before. So this is now the Messenger of Allah telling us about a rule in Allah's creation, that when the people start committing obscenity, illegal sexual intercourse, sharing partners, making it open, having all of this promiscuity, then what is going to happen is that there will be plagues and diseases that were not found or were not widespread in their ancestors. And of course you can see this clearly. This is true in the societies that we live in. Sexually transmitted diseases are all over the place, because of this culture, of this permissive culture that they are spreading. Anyway, that's a rule in Allah's creation. And then he says, وَلَمْ يَنْقُصُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ إِلَّا أُخِذُوا بِالسِّنِينَ وَشِدَّةِ الْمَعُونَةِ وَجَوْرِ السُّلْطَانِ عَلَيْهِمْ. And never do they cheat in the weights and measures, except that they are taken by years of hardship and scarcity of provision and the tyranny of the ruler over them. So this is very explicit from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu, the one who does not speak from his own desire. This is revelation. The Quran is revelation, and the Sunnah, this is also revelation as well. And so this knowledge which he gave us is from Allah Azza wa Jal, informing us about his creation, that if individuals cheat each other in the weights and measures, then Allah will bring tyrannical rulers over them. Then he continues, وَلَمْ يَمْنَعُوا زَكَاةَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ إِلَّا مُنِعُوا الْقَطَرِ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَلَوْلَا الْبَهَائِمْ لَمْ يَمْتَرُوا. And never do they withhold the zakah of their wealth, except that the rain will be held from the sky. Had it not been for the animals, then they would have never been given rain from the sky. Then he continues, never do they break the covenant of Allah. وَلَمْ يَنْقُضُوا أَحْدَ اللَّهِ وَأَحْدَ رَسُولِهِ إِلَّا سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ عَدُوًّا مِنْ غَيْرِهِمْ فَأَخَذُوا بَعْدَ مَا كَانَ فِي أَيْدِهِمْ. Never ever do they break or violate the covenant of Allah and His Messenger. What is the covenant of Allah and His Messenger? That we worship none but Allah and we obey His Messenger. This is the covenant. Never do they break this covenant, except that Allah, He empowers an enemy over them. And this enemy comes from besides them, and it takes some of what they used to possess. Right? So when the Muslims break the covenant of Allah and His Messenger, then Allah empowers enemies to come and to dominate them. Right? And to, over-empower them. And then they begin to take from them what they used to possess. We're going to speak about this a bit more, inshallah. And to the end, وَمَا لَمْ تَحْكُمْ أَئِمَّتُهُمْ بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And so never do their leaders not rule by the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَيَتَحَرَّوْا فِي مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ, and seek to apply that which Allah revealed. إِلَّا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ بَأْسَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شَدِيدًا, except that Allah makes the infighting between them to be very severe. So the point being from all of this, you can see that the Quran and the Sunnah have taught us that this creation works in a certain way. There are rules in Allah's creation. So if you abide by certain things, you will have al-aman, you will have safety and security, and you will have rizq. And then when you commit corruption in the ways that we mentioned, then this will go to the other side. There will be khawf, there will be fear, there will be poverty, there will be hunger. And so this is how we understand what is happening in every single nation and society. Now, to explain this even more, this hadith which I just mentioned to you, I want to focus on the fourth one. The fourth one, it mentions that when the people break Allah's covenant and His Messenger's covenant, Allah will empower enemies over them. And those enemies will take what they used to possess. I want to mention another beautiful statement from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. And I won't read the Arabic for shortage of time, but I'll explain to you the essence of what he's saying. This is in the 13th volume of Majmu' al-Fatawa, page 177 onwards. This is abridged. So basically he's explaining here the first thing he explains is, why did the very first ruling dynasty come to an end? Who is the very first ruling dynasty in Islam? Right? So we have the Khulafa after the Messenger of Allah. Then there was the Bani Umayyah, right? The Umayyads. They ruled for roughly around maybe 80, 100 years or so. Ibn Taymiyyah is explaining why did their rule come to an end? Why did they come to an end? So he says, the last of the Khulafa of Bani Umayyah, his name was Marwan bin Muhammad al-Ja'di. Al-Ja'di. Why did he take this name Al-Ja'di? Where did this name Al-Ja'd come from? Al-Ja'di. He says Al-Ja'di is an ascription to Al-Ja'd bin Dirham. This mubtadi', this innovator, misguided innovator, Al-Ja'd bin Dirham, is the one who brought into Islam the ideas of the Greek philosophers, the Jews, the Christians, in relation to Allah's names and attributes. Right? He brought all of that into Islam. He brought that statement. And this ruler of Bani Umayyah, he allied himself with Al-Ja'd bin Dirham until he began to ascribe himself to him, Al-Ja'di. So he says the misfortune of this ascription returned back upon him, such that the Umayyad state came to an end. Meaning that his rule was ended because he made friendship and allegiance with this innovator, this misguided innovator. This is why his rulership came to an end. And he said, for when innovations which oppose the deen of the messengers appear in a nation, then Allah seeks revenge from whoever opposes the messengers, and He will then aid the cause of the messengers. He continues, when hypocrisy, when innovations, when sinfulness, when bid'ah and fujur appeared, which were in opposition to the deen of the messengers, the enemies were empowered over them. Thus, Christian Rome came out to Sham and the Jazeera time after time, and they gradually took over the coastal regions of Sham on the Mediterranean, bit by bit, until they took Bayt al-Maqdis at the end of the 4th century Hijrah. He's speaking about the Crusaders. The Crusaders came from the west, from Europe. They came all across from France and other places, and they made their way through Anatolia all the way down to Sham. This is what he's speaking of. Why did this happen? It happened because al-bid'ah wal-nifaq wal-fujur was manifested in the Muslim nation. Right? The people broke the covenant of Allah and His Messenger. And so Allah empowered the enemy over them. And so this enemy took some of what they used to possess, the very words of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So they took all of that coastal region of Sham. They kept coming in waves, the first crusade, second crusade, third crusade. Right? And they did what they did. What's the reason for that? What's the reason? Al-bid'ah wal-fujur. Innovations. The people, these innovations entered the Muslim nation. The bid'ah of the Khawarij, the Rafida, the Qadariyah, the Murji'ah, the Mu'tazila, the Jahmiyyah. All these innovations, and then they kind of snowballed and became bigger and more evil until outright disbelief statements of outright disbelief. And then shirk appeared, in northern Egypt at the hands of the Ubaydiyya, these Batinis, Rafidi Batinis. Right? This is what he's referring to. So from the west come the Crusaders. Then he continues, so after a period they besieged Damascus, they took over Damascus, and in this period the people of Sham were in the worst of situations. In between the Christians on the one side, so they were attacked by the Christians on one side, and on the other side they were attacked by the heretics and the Batiniyya. Right? These were hypocrites, disbelievers. Right? They were upon disbelief. They came from North Africa. They moved across to Egypt, and they established a state in Egypt. They had other states in Bahrain and northern Iran. These were all what we call the Batiniyya. These were hypocrites, disbelievers, pretending to be upon Islam, and they're trying to mix between Persian philosophy, Persian religion, fire worship, and between something of the Sharia and with the Greek philosophy, mixing it all together and coming with a new religion, and then packaging it, putting the label on the top of Shiism. So outwardly it's Shiism, we love Ahlul Bayt, and underneath it's all of this mixture of fire worship, the Majin religion, Greek philosophy, and all of this, right? So these people, they had a state in Egypt and in Bahrain, towards where Bahrain is, and likewise in northern Iran, right? These states appeared as well. So the Muslims were being attacked from that direction, and likewise from the Crusaders from this direction from Europe. What's the reason for all of that? Al-bid'a wal-fujur. Then he says, and likewise when the people of the east, now we're going towards the east, towards Khorasan, right? Afghanistan, those areas. When the people of the east were established upon Islam, they were aided against the pagan disbelievers from the Turk and from the Hindus and from the Chinese. And in that time the Turk was a general term referring to various groups of people, the Mongolians and the Turkmen people who at that time hadn't entered into Islam. Many of them hadn't entered into Islam, like the furthest regions, right? So when the people in the east, the people of the Sunnah, they were upon the Sunnah, and when they were upon this, they were aided against the pagan disbelievers from the Turk, the Indians, the Hindus, the Chinese, and others. But when there appeared from them whatever appeared of innovations of al-bid'ah wal-ilhad, ilhad meaning turning away and negation of Allah's attributes and things like that, and fujur and sinfulness, the disbelievers were unleashed against them. So who came from the other side? On the other side, the Mongols came, the Tatar and the Mongols. These people were the most barbaric, vicious, fierce types of warriors that came from Mongolia, and they took two routes. The first route, they came underneath towards Iran, Iraq, what is modern day Iran, Iraq, Sham, all the way reaching, Damascus, close to the Mediterranean. And then they went above as well, above I think it's the Black Sea, all the way across Russia, all the way across to the Ukraine, all the way across right into Europe. They reached right into Europe. Allah unleashed them from the east, right? And so you all know the bloodshed and the murder that these people committed upon the Muslim nation, right? The really terrible stories of what these people did, right? So all of this is happening at pretty much the same time. And this is just before the time of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullahu ta'ala, that the situation of the Muslim nation was extremely, extremely dire. Much worse, multiple times worse than what it is today. Right? An enemy from the east, an enemy from the west, the Mongols, and in the Muslim nation there are hypocrites, Batiniyya, right? And they are littered in different places, and all of them are aiding each other in order to eat up and devour the people of the Sunnah, Sunni Islam, right? So he continues, and the cause of these enemies entering the lands of the Muslims was the appearance of deviation, ilhad, hypocrisy, nifaq, and innovations, bid'ah. And the intent here is to explain that the cause of the decline of the state of Bani Umayyah was this Ja'ad bin Dirham, the denier of Allah's attributes, and other reasons behind it as well. So, can you now connect the hadith that we mentioned earlier to what Ibn Taymiyyah is mentioning of the Crusaders, and then the Mongols and the Tatars, and then this continued after Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah? Because you know that maybe 3 or 4 centuries after Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah came the age and the era of colonialism and imperialism, where these European nations, they went, France, Britain, Denmark, Germany, Holland. Where did they go? Right? They went all across. They went to India, they went to Indonesia, they went to Egypt. They colonized all of these lands. What's the reason for that? What's the reason for why that happened? It is because the Muslims, they broke the covenant of Allah and the covenant of His Messenger. And this covenant is that we worship none but Allah alone. We worship Him upon Tawheed. And that we follow the Sunnah of the Messenger. We worship Allah in the way that His Messenger taught us to worship Him. When you break that covenant, then this is the real and true reason why enemies are empowered over you. Now, there are many more statements that I have here that I could read, but I want to just stop at this point and just make some reflections, because I want you to really pick out the important lesson from all of this, which is that we have to really and truly understand the true and real causes behind the calamities in ourselves, in our own lives as individuals, in our families, the trials that we have with our families, and likewise the calamities that we have as a nation, or that we find in Muslim nations. Through all of these statements that you've read, and there are many more as well, you can now start to understand why calamities appear in your life, why you are having problems with wealth, with provision, and with fear, and with safety. And we want you to relate these affairs to your actual life, and likewise to the affairs which are taking place in the Muslim nation. And what we want to make clear is the difference between the people of Tawheed and the people of Sunnah, who are the true rectifiers. They are the true rectifiers of the individual and the society, right? And they rectify based upon detailed knowledge, insight. And they are in stark contrast to all of these people who are out there in the field, operating in the field of da'wah, trying to win numbers, trying to win the minds and the hearts of the common Muslims who don't know these things, who don't understand these things, right? Whether you have these groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, whether you have Hizb ut-Tahrir, whether you have and the extremist groups amongst them, all of these people are misguided, and they are upon misguided methodologies because they are not following the methodology of the prophets and messengers in rectifying the society. Let me give you a quick example to show you the severe danger of this. For many, many decades it was believed that the reason for heart disease and heart attacks was a chemical or a molecule called cholesterol. Right? So on the basis that cholesterol is the direct cause of clogging your arteries, right? Upon this notion, for many, many decades, medicines and drugs were developed in order to, affect the level of cholesterol in your body. It turned out that this wasn't the actual cause, and the build-up of plaque wasn't the actual cause, but rather it was a symptom of something else. It was something else. What the real cause was is that because of diet and stress, like eating bad foods, it causes inflammation in your veins, right? You're eating bad food and your immune system is now triggering a response that it really shouldn't be doing. So when it starts creating this inflammation in a certain spot, in a certain location, right, the cholesterol which is flowing in the body tries to come to salvage, to try and repair that issue. Right? So the cholesterol is a bystander, it's not the cause. It's a bystander. This is like, for example, when you have an accident in a motorway, and then an ambulance comes to repair, and a fire engine comes to sort out this problem. Right? So do you now say, you know what, the cause of this problem in the motorway was the fire engine and the ambulance? You don't say that. It was something else. It was something else. You understand? So now they're realizing, hold on, cholesterol is not the actual cause, but it's a witness and a bystander to the actual problem, which is inflammation. So now they're having to completely alter 3 or 4 decades worth of incorrect advice and incorrect medication. And now they're telling you things that there are good fats. Not all fat is bad. Right? Reduce the carbohydrates to make sure there's, inflammation is reduced. Cholesterol, there is 2 types. There's HDL and LDL. It's not all the same, So anyway, the point being, can you see how you can destroy people's lives when you cannot distinguish between a symptom and a cause? Can you see how I'll give you a physical example how you can destroy people's lives? Right? You give them drugs and medication that make them impotent, that make them, and you're not even solving the problem. Right? You're not getting down to the actual underlying problem. In a similar manner, imagine how the people of bid'ah and dalala, how much corruption and death and destruction they are going to cause because they cannot identify the true cause, and they confuse the symptom with the cause. Can you see that clearly? Right? We made it clear that tyrannical rulers are a symptom of something else. Right? The tyrannical rulers are simply a manifestation of Allah's justice and wisdom. And that there are reasons why these tyrannical rulers are there. In fact, while we're on this topic, I'm going to read you and finish with a statement from Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah. And he's speaking again on the same topic. And he says, in fact he mentions many different things, but I want to pick out this specific one in particular. He says, وَتَأَمَّلْ حِكْمَتَهُ تَعَالَى فِي أَنْ جَعَلَ مُلُوكَ الْعِبَادِ وَأُمَرَاءَهُمْ وَوُلَاتَهُمْ مِنْ جِنْسِ أَعْمَالِهِمْ. Look and reflect at the wisdom of Allah, how He has made the kings and the rulers and the leaders over the people to be of the same species, of the same type as the actions of the people. Rather, it is as if the actions of the servants have become manifest in the forms and appearances of their rulers. So if they, the people, are upon istiqamah, then their kings will be upon istiqamah, will be upon uprightness with respect to them. وَإِنْ عَدَلُوا عَدَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. And if they, the people, behave with justice, then the kings will be just over them. And if they are oppressive, meaning against each other, then the rulers will be oppressive over them. And if amongst the people there is al-makr wal-khadi'a, right? So if now within the society you start deceiving and being dishonest and being insincere to one another in your dealings with one another, if this starts appearing in a society, then their rulers will be made likewise over them. The rulers now are going to deceive the subjects, right? And if the subjects withhold the rights of Allah from each other, then, and they are stingy with respect to them, then their kings and their rulers are going to be likewise over them, right? So if you don't fulfill the rights of your Muslim brother and your relatives, and you fall short in that, then the rulers are going to withhold the rights that you have upon them. This is the real cause, right? This is the real cause why they may be hoarding the wealth, This is the real cause why they want you to fulfill their rights, but they don't want to give you your rights. These are the real underlying reasons. He says, if the people take and misappropriate from each other or from those who are weak, and so they exploit them and take from them their wealth, if the subjects do this between themselves, then Allah will make the kings and the rulers to take from the whole society, right, what the kings and the rulers do not deserve. So they will impose upon them al-mukus wal-wada'if. They will impose upon them taxes and duties on their wealth. And likewise, every time the people, they take something from a weak and downtrodden person, they see he's susceptible and weak, and they exploit him, and they take something from him, then Allah will make the kings to take the same from the people with force and with strength. So he says, فَعُمَّالُهُمْ ظَهَرَتْ فِي سُوَرِ أَعْمَالِهِمْ. So meaning that the rulers over them are just simply a manifestation of their own actions. وَلَيْسَ فِي الْحِكْمَةِ الْإِلَهِيَّةِ أَنْ يُوَلَّى عَلَى الْأَشْرَارِ الْفُجَّارِ إِلَّا مَنْ يَكُونُ مِنْ جِنْسِهِمْ. It is not from the wisdom, divine wisdom, that upon the sinful, evil people that they are made to rule except by people who are of their likes. Then he says, when we look at the very first generation, the best of generations, the most pious of generations, meaning Abu Bakr and Umar, we see that their rulers, meaning Abu Bakr and Umar, they were like that over them. And when they began to, mix evil with good, then likewise the rulers were made over them likewise. فَحِكْمَةُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى تَعْبَى أَنْ يُوَلِّي عَلَيْنَا في مثل هذه الأزمان فحكمة الله تعالى تأبى أن يولي علينا في مثل هذه الأزمان مثل معاوية وعمر بن عبد العزيز. So meaning that the wisdom of Allah refuses that in our time we should be ruled over by people who are the likes of Muawiyah and Umar bin Abdul Aziz, let alone the likes of Abu Bakr and Umar. Rather, our rulers are in accordance with us, and the rulers of those who were before us were in accordance with the people who came before. And all of these affairs, they are in accordance with the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal. So you can see now here from the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, that the ruler is simply a manifestation of the people. And Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who places the Amir, as has been stated by Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu anhu. He said, Innal Amir min amrillah. The Amir, the appointing of the Amir, is from the affair of Allah. Allah is the one who appoints him. فَمَنْ تَعَنَ فِي الْأَمِيرِ. So whoever reviles the Amir, فَإِنَّهُ يَطْعَنُ فِي أَمْرِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Then really he is reviling the affair of Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning, and this is a refutation of all of these ignorant people, whether they are from the Muslim Brotherhood or Hizb ut-Tahrir and those kind of people with this faulty understanding, that the rulers over the Muslims have been appointed by Allah Azza wa Jal by way of His divine wisdom and His divine justice. So any person who comes along and he starts reviling, meaning he comes and says, the reason for no jobs is because of this wicked evil ruler. The reason for the disunity of the Muslim nation is because of this evil ruler. Meaning everything, the ruler is responsible for it. Every single calamity on the face of this earth is the ruler's fault. Right? And so he's making ta'an upon the Amir. Right? What this person is really doing, he is making ta'an upon the affair, the command of Allah Azza wa Jal. The command of Allah, which is kawni, qadari. Meaning the affair, the laws of Allah in His creation. He's really reviling the command of Allah. Right? He's criticizing the wisdom and the justice of Allah Azza wa Jal in placing these particular rulers over the people. Why? Because this person has no fiqh, a jahil. Right? So the point being from all of this discussion, and likewise, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, in fact, he has a similar statement. If I can find where it is, we'll finish with this inshallah ta'ala. He says, indeed the affair of rule being destined for the kings and their deputies from the rulers, judges and leaders is not due to the deficiency in them alone, but due to the deficiency in both the shepherd and the flock together. As you yourselves behave, you will be ruled over in a like manner. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Thus do we turn the oppressors against each other on account of that which they used to earn, that which they used to basically do. And Abu Bakr Muhammad al-Tartushi rahimahullah, he said, and we'll finish with this inshallah ta'ala, I never ceased listening to the people making this statement, أعمالكم عمالكم أعمالكم عمالكم. Your actions, your own actions, are your workers, are your own agents. He says, I kept hearing this statement, people mentioning this statement. I never really understood it. I never understood it. And as you yourselves behave, كما تكونون يولى عليكم. And as you yourselves behave, you will be ruled over likewise. I never understood why the people were saying this or what it meant until I grasped this meaning from the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, and then He mentioned this verse. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ Allah. So he said that I never understood what this meant until I grasped the meaning from this ayah in the Quran. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Thus do we turn the oppressors one against the other on account of that which they used to earn. So he said, and it used to be said that whatever thing you are showing rejection against in your time, whatever thing you're complaining about in your time, then it is your own deed that has corrupted that for you. And Abdul Malik bin Marwan said to the people, this is a ruler from the Bani Umayyah, he said, O subjects, you have not dealt justly with us. You want from us the seerah, meaning the way and the behavior and the treatment of Abu Bakr and Umar, but you yourselves do not behave with respect to us or yourselves with the behavior of Abu Bakr and Umar. Alright? So we'll finish with that statement from Ibn Taymiyyah. There are actually many more statements I have here. Due to shortage of time, I can't go into all of them. But inshallah, the general idea, you understand the general picture, that the people of the Sunnah, they are followers of the prophets and the messengers, and they gain a correct and true understanding of how He behaves with His creation. They understand the rules of Allah Azza wa Jal, as we find in these texts from the Quran, from these ayat and from the ahadith and from the elaboration of the statements that we brought from the Salaf, from the Sahaba and from the Tabi'een and from Ibn al-Qayyim and Ibn Taymiyyah, that we have a very particular understanding of the reasons and causes for all of the calamities that happen in society, to individuals or whole nations. We know why this is happening. It is because the people are far away from the sound creed. They have entered into shirk, they have entered innovations, and so long as these affairs remain, then Allah's justice, Allah's vengeance, Allah's wisdom will continue to be implemented. Right? So the people of the Sunnah are the true rectifiers of the earth. They are true rectifiers of the society. And this is why the whole issue of the methodology of the prophets in calling to Allah. This is not obviously my topic, but other speakers will address this particular topic. But I wanted to cover this topic in my lesson so that you can better appreciate some of the other lectures, and how important it is for us to truly understand the stories of the prophets, what they began with, what they taught to their people, how they began with Tawheed, and how they began with obedience to the messenger. This is the true cause of rectification. And it is only the true, genuine scholars who are upon the way of the Salaf, who can identify the true and real causes behind the calamities. Right? The reason why Muslims are split and divided and humiliated is not because of the disbelieving nations. Right? Don't point your finger at the non-Muslim rulers. Don't point your finger at them. Don't point your finger just at the rulers. Right? They are one part of many, many factors. Right? So when you misunderstand this whole issue, then you will embark upon methodologies which bring even more corruption, even more harm, even more bloodshed than there was at the very beginning. That's why Ibn Taymiyyah said that 70 or 60 years of tyrannical rule is better than a single night without a ruler, meaning living in chaos and confusion without a ruler to organize the affairs. Right? It is better to have 60 years of that than to have a single night of without having a ruler. So inshallah, perhaps we've benefited from some of these tremendously insightful statements from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim. And as I said, try to relate what you've heard in this lesson, because all of the lectures today are connected, and some of them fill gaps in others, and some of them provide more details, a bit more detail than others. So put everything together and gain a good understanding of this topic. Inshallah ta'ala, we ask Allah to benefit us from the knowledge of the